This medieval castle in northeast England has been an important part of the country's history for hundreds of years. But how am I personally linked to it? Hi loves, it's Aura. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to a brand new video. I was asked by the super talented HIPHIPRENEE to take part in a spooky Halloween collab where we all had to choose a horror story from popular media and create a build to go along with it. And I have wanted to do this build for such a long time, and this was a good chance to do it since it has been featured in a lot of spooky shows like Ghost Hunters International. And I am joined by all of these amazing simmers, so go check them out. I have all of their socials linked below. This will be the first episode in a brand new series called A Medieval History. Today we will be taking a deeper look at Chillingham Castle in the northern part of Northumberland, England. Due to the amount of history, I have to split this into two videos. In this video, we will discuss the history of the castle, including the titles attached to it. And in the second video, we will take a look at why it's considered the most haunted castle in England. And stay tuned to learn how I am personally linked to this castle and why it holds such a special place in my heart. The site of Chillingham Castle was originally a monastery in the late 12th century, but was converted into a castle to help aid in the war against the Scots. The original building was destroyed by a Scottish raiding party in 1296. The castle was thought to only consist of a tower and a curtain wall, little more than a fortified manor house. It was an important strategic location, and in 1298, King Edward I, also known as Edward Longshanks and Hammer of the Scots, used Chillingham as his base and stayed at the castle on his way to battle the Scottish army led by William Wallace. The castle was often used as a staging location for English armies and was repeatedly attacked and besieged by Scottish armies and raiding parties. One such attack occurred the previous year in 1297 when William Wallace attacked Chillingham, badly damaging the town nearby and burning the local women and children alive in a church. Over the years, the castle underwent a rapid and harsh series of enhancements. And in 1344, a license to crenelate was signed for the castle by King Edward III. A license to crenelate is a document signed by the king and granted the holder permission to fortify his property. This was rarely given due to the threat of the castle being used against the crown in the future. Chillingham Castle's defenses significantly improved, and a moat was dug around the entire building, a 12-foot thick curtain wall was constructed, and 3 other towers were built, making the structure quadrangular. The square design is a style that was not often seen in Northumberland. The defensive enhancements came just in time, because in 1345, King David II led a large Scottish army across into Northumberland, and while the invasion came to an abrupt halt due to his capture at the Battle of Neville's Cross the same year, the following 250 years would spark an age of lawlessness in the area, with marauders dominating the region. Chillingham and other castles in Northumberland were used by marcher lords as bases in an attempt to control the troublesome region. The castle was badly damaged in 1513 by Scottish King James IV, who was supported by French King Louis XII, because English King Henry VIII had been increasing his military presence in mainland Europe at the time. Numbers of the invading army can be as big as 60,000 with extensive artillery. James IV quickly reduced 2 other border strongholds in Norham and Wark. Chillingham was much weaker in comparison to both of these strongholds and was never built to withstand such an attack. Not surprisingly, the garrison surrendered after a brief bombardment. Scottish control of the area did not last long, though. Thomas Howard, the Earl of Surrey, mustered an army and defeated the Scottish army, killing King James IV later that year. Chillingham suffered quite a bit of damage during the many battles against the Scots, but the castle saw an attack of a different kind in 1536 because of the Pilgrimage of Grace, which is the most famous of all rebellions against King Henry VIII after he split from the Catholic Church. It is thought that some of the towers had to be rebuilt, and due to this, the castle was refurbished and redeveloped during Tudor and Stuart times. When tensions between England and Scotland eased after King James VI of Scotland ascended to the English throne as King James I, unifying the two realms, the need for military presence in the area declined. During the next 250 years, the castle was converted into a lavish residence, with most of the defensive structures reduced or removed entirely. The moat was filled in, the battlements were converted into residential wings, picture windows were added to the corner towers, and a banquet hall and library were built. The 18th and 19th centuries saw beautification of the grounds, with many prominent architects and landscapers arriving at Chillingham, including Capability Brown and Sir Geoffrey Wyatville, with Wyatville being responsible for the work at Windsor Castle. The castle has been a stop for royalty and other famous people throughout the years. Anne of Denmark, the wife of King James I, stayed at the castle with her children on their way from Scotland to London in June of 1603. King James I stayed at the castle while traveling from Scotland to England for his coronation. Other monarchs and royalty to stay include King Henry III, King Charles I, and the Prince and Princess of Wales. Chillingham is also known for a breed of white cattle that live in a large enclosed park at Chillingham Castle. The park has existed since the Middle Ages, and the cattle have remained largely undisturbed and wild. There are about 100 animals at Chillingham and a small reserve of about 20 at Crown Estate in northeast Scotland. The legend surrounding the cattle states that because of the shape of their heads, they could be directly descended from the ancient aurochs, or even the primordial ox. It appears that their characteristics differ greatly from the cattle brought to England by the Romans. Not enough genetic studies have been done to thoroughly test this, so this is all speculation. This breed of cattle once roamed free in England and Scotland, but when the license to crenelate was given, King Edward III also allowed for a wall to be built to keep the cattle safe from marauders. During World War II, the castle was used as an army barracks. It is said that during this time, much of the decorative wood inside of the castle was stripped and burned by the soldiers stationed there. They also removed the lead from the roof, which caused extensive weather damage to large parts of the building, and it fell into a state of disrepair. The land and estate were gradually sold as costs for repairing the derelict castle were daunting, and it was eventually bought in 1982 and renovated. The castle is no stranger to the arts. The 1997 film Elizabeth had scenes filmed inside the castle. The making of Harry Potter was based at Chillingham, and shows such as Ghost Hunters International and Most Frightened have been filmed there. Sir Walter Scott cited the castle and grounds in his book The Bride of Lammermoor. Chillingham Castle is open as a hotel, a party venue, is open to tourists, and offers ghost tours. So, who lived in and owned the castle? Chillingham Castle has been owned by the Grey family bloodline since it was fortified as a castle in the 12th century. Yes, that Grey family. The same Grey family related to many of the English monarchs and the family Lady Jane Grey was born into. The Grey family hails from Grey-sur-Mer in Normandy. Anchatel de Grey is the founder of the house and was a vassal of William the Conqueror. He accompanied William on his conquest of England and fought alongside him in the Battle of Hastings. From there, the Grey family started roots in England. Generations later, and the Grey family can trace lineage back to William the Conqueror. In 1409, many of the Greys traveled to France and helped capture a castle in Normandy and were made Earls of Tankerville, with some even made dukes in their early warrior days. The title was drawn from Tankerville in Normandy and was created 3 separate times, with the first 2 in the peerage of England and the 3rd in the peerage of Great Britain. John Grey served with distinction in the 100 Years' War against the French, and the title Earl of Tankerville was created and granted to him in 1418. The title remained with his son, but once the lands of Normandy were lost to the French in 1459, the title was dissolved and John's grandson, Richard Grey, lost the title. The title was revived again in 1695 for Baron Ford Grey, who held a barony in Chillingham. He ultimately died sonless, and the title was dissolved again in 1701. Earl Ford Grey's eldest daughter, Lady Mary Grey, married Charles Bennet, Lord Ossulston, and member of the House of Lords. In 1714, the title for Earl of Tankerville was created for a third time and given to Lord Charles Bennet, along with Chillingham Castle. The title still remains in the Bennet family today, even though the castle was sold in the 20th century. In 1982, the castle was purchased by Sir Humphrey Wakefield, 2nd Baronet, whose third wife, Catherine, was a Grey descendant. Sir Humphrey Wakefield is considered an expert in antiques and architecture, particularly historic restoration, and has worked at Christie's in London, subsequently becoming director and chairman of antique dealing firms. Sir Wakefield has since restored the castle and makes it his home. So, how am I personally connected to this castle? I have heard about Chillingham Castle from my dad's parents since I was a young child. They would sometimes playfully call me Lady before my name while talking about Chillingham. I grew up having a love for a castle which I have never had the privilege of going to myself. The last time my grandparents visited from England, they brought with them the family tree and other information about the castle, which I still have today. Chillingham Castle has been owned by my family since the 12th century. My maiden name is Bennet, and I am a descendant of the Grey and Bennet families. More specifically, when the title was created for the third time, the eldest son retained the title, and I am descended from the younger son. The title for the Earl of Tankerville is still held by a distant relative, Peter Grey Bennet. One day I hope to visit the castle that I have heard about since I was a young child. It's on my bucket list. What about you? Do you have any interesting ancestors? Let me know down below. As always, thank you for watching this episode of A Medieval History. If you have any ideas for my next medieval build, let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to be the first to know when I post new content. It really helps my channel out a lot. Stay safe and stay well, friends, and I will see you in the next one.